Okay, hello and welcome to the show. I'm Hot Toddy, that's Miss Pengrino, and welcome to an all-new episode of I'm Starting Cause You're Sleepy.
Dang.
Get
real.
Come
on. It's okay. I'm here.
Anyway, so this is Get Real, and on this edition of Get Real, we're going to talk about a movie. It's been out for a couple weeks now, but nonetheless, it deserves to be spoken about because it is a wonderful, wonderful film. It's Dune.
It's a film.
Why are you the way that you are?
It's Dune Part 2. A wonderful film, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Based, of course, on the Frank Herbert novel. This is like the 14th, adaptation of the film, but whatever. It's all good in the hood. Miss Pengrino, what did you think of Dune Part 2?
It's a film.
Stop it! Stop it! Review the movie!
I don't. It's hard for me.
Review the movie!
Okay.
Just do it!
It was not a bad movie.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite. It's very long.
Come on! First of all, we have to pay homage to the hat because Oppenheimer mainly, but of course Barbie was a big part of the Oscars. So shout out to Barbenheimer. I'm still very much into the Barbenheimers. That's why I'm wearing this hat tonight.
Oh, good for you!
Back to Dune Part 2. It was a great film. It was the best movie you ever saw, right?
No.
Oh, come on.
Definitely not.
Oh, you suck.
I guess it's really just not my type of movie. It's more...
It's a space opera.
Okay.
Well, Star Wars is a space opera, but it's geared more towards children, and so maybe it's a little bit more entertaining.
Probably. So I think it's funny because everybody kept telling us this one was more action-packed, more action-packed, more action-packed.
And it was!
It was, but it was like the same action in the same scenario, in the same, like it was not very, it was kind of boring in the action to me.
Oh, stop it.
Stop it!
Let's get to me now, okay? Let's get to me.
Oh, okay. Well, then I don't even need to be on the show if you don't give a shit what I think.
Cut!
I think that this movie, like, I kept asking you questions.
I know, God, yes, so many questions.
I kept asking questions. I am not into movies where I have to ask questions. Like, I want to not have to think about things this hard.
That's something we have in common. I don't like movies where you have to ask questions.
Okay.
What is the
It's
Dune?
not, again, it's not a bad movie.
What's the Dune movies about? Spice. Who's in control of Spice? That's
Right.
it. That's all you need to know. What more do you need to know?
No, because you need to know. I'm trying to figure out who the bad guy is, and there's like 8 different bad guys. They're all bad guys. There's no good guys.
The Baron, the Emperor, they are the bad guys.
What about that Bene Gesserit lady? Not the mom. Well, maybe possibly the mom.
She's not helping.
Okay, the old one, the old lady.
The old lady that was with the Emperor?
Yes.
She's a bad guy.
Okay. I asked you this and you're like, oh no. It's just the fat guy is the bad guy.
Because in part 1 of Dune, yes, the fat guy is the Baron is the bad guy.
To me, in this
and
whole movie,
Dave Bautista, bad guy. Austin Butler's character now in this movie, bad guy.
To me, in this movie, they're all f***ing bad guys.
And can I just say that I'm just so glad that we didn't see Austin Butler in a Speedo like we had to with Sting in the David Lynch Dune. I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there. We saw more of Sting in that movie than we ever wanted to see.
I mean, but if you're gonna see something with somebody, Austin Butler's one to see.
Yeah. Giggity, 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 giggity. My girl Florence Pugh is in this movie too, so I gotta...
That's the Black Widow sister.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like her.
And she was in, speaking of Barbenheimer,
yes,
she was in Oppenheimer.
Lady.
She got nailed in that movie.
She did. She's beautiful.
She's a crush. We shouldn't be harping on this, but the point is, but she is not necessarily a bad guy. She's more like I don't really know what's going on or what to do.
I felt like her.
Who am I? What am I?
No, look, I get it. I get Dune.
Right.
Dune is a hard story to follow. But once you get the general plot, once you get all the affiliates,
and
who's in charge, it's because it's like Star Wars, which, by the way, of course, Frank Herbert accused George Lucas of stealing Star Wars, of stealing Dune for Star Wars. Which, there is a lot of influence, and I think even George Lucas said, yeah, there's probably some influence in there. But anyway, it's not as easy to follow, because Star Wars is easy to follow. You got, in the original trilogy, you have the Rebels and the Empire. In the prequel series, you had the Republic and the Trade Federation. And in the sequels, you had the First Order and the Resistance. So it's always one side versus the other, light versus dark. It's always that. In Dune, it's more like a real life scenario of what the future might hold for our people. And that's like, there's all these different groups that may not get along with each other, but they got to find a way to do so to really combat the true enemy. Which, by the way, allegory for life today. We're all at each other's throats, but at the end of the day, there's one higher group that's trying to make us do this, and we have to take care of that problem. How are you not getting this, Miss Pengrino?
I think ultimately it boils down, and you're gonna hate that I say this, it's too long. It's too long for me to focus that much mental energy.
Life is too long.
Was not that long.
It's the same length. It's the same length of time.
I don't believe it.
2.5 hours is like every Star Wars movie. And that's how long this movie was. It was like 2.5 hours. That was it. That was the majority of the film. And it was all a compelling and interesting story. That's the beautiful thing.
Maybe I just don't have the concentration.
You don't. You are a squirrel. You don't have a great attention span, Miss Pengrino. So you can't.
Sorry, guys.
You can't follow these movies like I can. It's
Pause 2 seconds.
What?
If I watched them with an intermission, I probably could follow better.
You had an intermission. You watched part 1, and then we had like a couple hour intermission, and you saw part 2 in the theater.
I meant
what more does she want?
I needed
Bitch, are you for real?
an intermission in part 2. I needed an intermission. Like, I got through part 1 just fine because I was at home and I was able to stop and like do things and like break up the monotony of the movie.
Why you felt you need to stop the movie?
Because I have ADD.
You got a dick?
Oui. My brain cannot focus for that long. Especially in something that's so concentrated with information. It's kind of why I bummed out of Oppenheimer too. My brain got kind of...
Which was another amazing film.
Towards the end because it was so long and it was so much information to process.
Look, okay, so Miss Pengrino has had her say. Are you done? You feel good?
I'm done.
You feel good? Dune Part 2 is a beautiful movie. Dune Part 1, I talked about this in 2021. Way back in 2021.
Also, pause 2 more seconds. I still need more Daya.
Oh, everybody loves Zendaya.
Yeah.
This is one of the positive things I was going to get to. Dune is a beautiful movie. It's got beautiful people. It's got beautiful scenery. It's got CGI. It's a desert, but it's so beautifully put together. The cinematography is gorgeous, and gorgeous, and the CGI is not misplaced. Even in Star Wars, even in the Star Wars movies, the Marvel movies. I even talked about it when it came to Anchorage, Argyle, the movie.
I was going to say Anchorman. What are you trying to say?
The Anchorman there was a lot of CGI in Anchorman.
Cannonball!
In Argyle, there was some really bad CGI in that movie, and you could tell when CGI.
I was so distracted by the comedy that I didn't care.
But see, that's the thing. Like I hone in on that. But even in Star Wars and Marvel, there's some bad CGI when you're just looking at it. Like they didn't even try. They're like, we're gonna put this monster in here and you're gonna enjoy it. Now, in Dune, that doesn't exist. Everything works so perfectly. It looks so real and it is so perfect and beautiful. Like the sandworms just. And what I love about the sandworms is that they do in like the David Lynch Dune and in like all the other adaptations, you always see them actually come out of the ground, and it always looks kind of iffy, you know. But what they do in these movies, what they do in these current films, is they kind of go with the Jaws effect, which is less is more. You know, the less
You
you
don't
see
see
it,
it. You don't see it. You don't see it until all of a sudden you see it. You see everything, and then it goes away.
the less you see, the better it is, and that's it. Like you just see like the teeth every so often. You maybe see like the top because they're now riding the worms, you know. And so you see like the backs of them. So you don't see them in their full form yet, and that's great.
Except when they're babies.
Except when they're babies.
You do see a baby version.
But even that looked pretty good. I thought that was
cute.
I thought that was going to be bad. But even
That
that
was pretty good puppetry.
pretty good. I was all right with it. But that's what I'm saying. It's like these movies are so beautifully put together, and the story, because I mean the story of Dune is already like it. Again, Dune is a little hard to follow. There's a lot of houses.
The first one was hard for me to follow.
There's a lot of houses, and meaning that there's a lot of power.
This was like Game of Thrones, but in a movie version.
It's
And
Game of
I gave up on
Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
If Game of Thrones and Star Wars had a baby, it would be Dune. That's
Yeah.
basically what it is. So yes, which is weird because I think Dune predates both of them, but it's
It
fine.
does.
Yeah, but it's fine. It's whatever.
Well, maybe not the book, because Game of Thrones is also a book.
Yeah, but the author of Game of Thrones is still alive. Frank Herbert died in the mid '80s, so I mean, I'm telling you, Dune came out before.
Probably.
Hot Toddy here, editing Hot Toddy. Note to you.
Put that.
Let's see the timeline here. Which came first?
Because I honestly don't know. I don't know what it is about Star Wars that I was able to keep better track. But Game of Thrones, I lost interest really quickly.
Again.
Dune, I didn't lose interest. It's still there. It's just,
Again,
it's not going to be a top for me.
it's not like fun. Dune is not fun, and that's refreshing. It's not like a fun space adventure like Star Wars or even Star Trek. Because even like I think even when it comes to like Star Trek, you probably wouldn't like the very first Star Trek movie that came out in 1979, the motion picture, because it was very Dune-esque. It was very.
I don't really like any of the Star Trek movies.
It was
now.
very like 2001: A Space Odyssey. But the point is like they took their time with that movie and made it into more like an Odyssey, as more than less of an epic, kind of like how they're doing with the Dune movies. It's more of an odyssey than an epic, and it's not crammed together like what David Lynch had to do, because he crammed the whole first story into one movie, whereas they split the first story into two films, Dune and Dune Part 2. So you know, it's again, it's hard to keep your attention if it's not like wow, bam, bam, you know, something fun going on all the time. It's different. And it's refreshing because it's actually, this is like a legit space opera. Star Wars is a space opera more on the side of children, which I'm not knocking it because I love Star Wars too. But Dune is more for your adult audiences.
So I'm a child.
Yes.
I did not know that.
But no, like I mean, but we got. Go ahead. Go ahead. Say what you say. What you got to say.
I think what gets me is like there's so many backstories to all the peeps,
Yeah.
and then like he can see all the past, all the future, all the
He's got special powers.
he does, and that's fine. It's just very overwhelming. Like I've never been one too much for like flashbacks in a movie when they happen excessive amounts of times,
I get it.
or
yeah.
flash forwards when they happen excessive amounts of times, because I get a little lost. It is hard for me to follow.
And that's fair. Because any movie, because like, well, Oppenheimer did that. It was backwards, present, future. It was all over the place. So you had to pay close attention to it. So yeah, if you're someone who is not really good at paying close attention, movies like Oppenheimer, movies like Dune probably isn't going to be your thing. You're probably going to need.
Again, good movie.
And that's not a bad thing.
That's not.
Please understand that that's not a bad thing. It takes, movies like these take a lot of attention power. So you do have to be super focused on the film. And see, that's kind of my thing, because I love movies, and so I can hone in on those storylines.
I used to be better at that.
Yeah. Well,
Just as I've gotten older, it's gotten a lot harder.
you got a lot more on your plate these days, and that's understandable.
So that probably also
But
doesn't help.
this right here, this is my baby, so I have to take care of it, you know. So that's why I have to pay attention to the movies.
Okay.
Let's talk about something that we can both agree on: the acting.
Oh well, that's
Chef's
great.
kiss.
Yeah, all the people in it. are fantastic.
And the celebrities. Let's just
Huge list.
Let's just name drop. We're gonna need a broom for the names we're gonna drop.
I mean,
here.
Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
Zendaya.
Which we needed more of, like you said.
I always want more of
Zendaya. You're
Always want more of her.
If you're making any film starring featuring Zendaya, more Zendaya. Just so
always more. Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken. He was the emperor of the galaxy.
That lady we said was pretty. I can't remember her name.
Florence Pugh.
Thank you.
Timothy Chalamet. We already mentioned him, right?
Yeah. The guy who
Javier Bardem. He played the. I forget the names.
Zagar.
No. But anyway, where were we? We were naming names. We were dropping names. Javier Bardem. No, he played the guy that worshipped him, that gave him the names and everything. Cigar, that's right. And Josh Brolin was in it. You think that his character dies in part 1, but he did not. He comes back.
That's the army guy, if you will.
This is the army guy. Again, I'm not great with the names.
The one who played.
I remember Paul Atreides, Shani, the Emperor, and that's about it.
The Baron.
The Baron. And then there's other people as well. Speaking of which, there's Austin Butler's in it. We mentioned Florence Pugh. We're very tired.
Wake up!
No, it's a huge cast, and the acting is sublime. It's so well put together. Nobody is eating the scenery, although Timothy Chalamet gets a little... Timothy Chalamet. Timothy Chevrolet. He kind of chews the scenery towards the end, which is great. It's all good stuff. So I mean, it's a beautifully shot film with a fantastic cast, a great story. Of course, if you know the story of Dune, you know what I'm talking about. And it's just so well shot, and it took its time. Sure, 2.5 hours, but they took their time with the film, and they made a very compelling and interesting story.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
I agree. It was a good movie, for sure. Just hard for me.
Well, I understand that, but still, we're getting back leg.
Man, move over and let me pass. Supposed to have to be pulling these hush puppies out your motherfucking.
But overall, I thought the movie was great. I think it's definitely worth the watch, and I think it's worth your time. It's just an all around.
So I do have to say that the director of this one, somebody said that it was filmed for more of that like 4K experience. It probably would have been better assisting to my ADD with that experience, because it would have been more sound, more like movement, more in my faceness.
Yeah.
It would have held my attention more.
Yeah.
Because it definitely was made for that kind of thing. Like big booms and big
bada boom.
Bada big boom.
But it's definitely worth to go see. If you have ADD like me, maybe wait till you can watch it at home so you can pause it if you need to.
So, well, that leads to the big question. Would you recommend Dune Part 2?
Oh, for sure. It's definitely good, especially if you enjoy the Dune series. Obviously, it is good. It is more action-packed, if you will, than the first one. Everybody has said. You kind of see the rise of some and the takedown of others. I don't feel like we talk too much like what goes on in the movie.
Well, no, we don't need to spoil anything, because if you've never seen any of the movies or read the book, be surprised. It's a good film. But that leads to my recommendation.
Oh, pause 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I don't know if I like how we've already set up for a third.
Oh, that's right. We didn't mention that.
Yeah.
So, spoiler alert. So the Dune Part 2 is the end of the first book of Dune. Okay. Then there's more Dune books,
right.
And so the way it ends, Paul Atreides and the group, and and all the what's the name of the group that Zendaya is a part of? What are they called?
The Fremens.
The Fremens. They're off. They're gonna go fight the war against the other houses because they don't want Timothy Chevrolet to take over the House of Atreides. And even though they know that the Emperor betrayed everybody, they still don't want him. They don't want Paul Atreides to take over Atreides. So they're all going to fight against each other, and that's how it ends. So it sets it up for another sequel. So I mean, it could be based on the third book, not just called Dune Part 3.
Right. No. So the reason I'm not so thrilled about that is because now I feel like we're falling into another Star Wars or another Marvel. Or another something. There's going to be like 8 movies.
Here's the thing.
And I need movies to stop making, same as I need books to stop making 80 other sequels. Like,
here's the thing. Dune, where Star Wars is a continuing story. But see, they always have to put on like it feels like when Star Wars, it has to be like a showpiece. Like each story kind of has to have their own set, like their own even though it's the same story, it has to have their own plot.
Yeah.
It has to have its own little A and B story.
And this is just one.
Dune doesn't do that. It's one big long stretch.
That's true.
Even like Lord of the Rings felt like that. It had to have its own little plot each one.
I'll give it to 4. After 4, you gotta cut that shit out.
You're out. She's
cut
out
it out
after that.
4.
Yeah.
You get 4. So you've already got 2. Mm-hmm. You got 2 more.
You got 2 more.
Done after 4.
But I mean,
it's like a book.
But the fact that they're going to keep this going, and the fact that the movies are so good so far, I highly recommend Dune. Yeah. Wait! I highly recommend Dune Part 2. Run, don't walk to the theater. Get there, see it before it's gone.
It is worth the money to see it. Because that is a big thing that we normally recommend or don't recommend. Is it worth to pay the money? It definitely is worth the money.
And you'd be proud of us because this time we didn't go on my parents' dime.
Yeah.
We bought the tickets.
Actually, he bought the tickets.
I bought the tickets.
Yeah, big money.
Big spender over here.
We didn't get any snacks because we had just eaten, so we were... But, Okay.
Dune Part 2 in theaters now. Wow, Miss Pengrino. That's Dune Part 2.
Yeah.
And great film. Glad we saw it. But now, it is time to move on to our next film project that we need to pay attention to.
Which is?
And that film is by a famous director.
Okay.
And that director...
Oh. No! No!